Ambassador Zektar walked through the empty halls of the human embassy. His forearms hung loose at his sides as he looked at the clean walls and perfect floors. Everything was in its place, but no one was there. 3 months ago, every human in the galaxy had disappeared, not just some of them, all of them. Every single human on every planet, every space station, every ship. They were just gone. Zektar stopped at the main meeting room. The big table still had papers on it from the last meeting. Coffee cups sat half empty. A pen lay open on a notebook. It looked like someone had just stepped out for a moment. But that moment had lasted 3 months. The Hegemony Council had sent Zektar to find answers. He was good at his job. He had solved many mysteries before. But this one made no sense at all. Humans had been everywhere in the galaxy. They ran trade routes between the stars. They fixed problems between different alien races. They built things and sold things and helped things work better. The galaxy had gotten used to having humans around. Now they were gone, and everything was falling apart. Zektar picked up one of the papers from the table. It was written in the human language called English. He could read it well. The paper talked about the Galaxy Unity Accords. This was the big peace treaty that 12 different alien races were going to sign. It would be the first time in history that so many different species would work together as one big group. The humans had spent years setting up this treaty. They had talked to every race, solved every problem, and made sure everyone would be happy. The signing was supposed to happen in just 4 days when the humans disappeared. Zektar walked to the window and looked out at the city below, Centauri. Prime was supposed to be the new capital of the United Galaxy. Now, it was just another city on another planet, full of confused aliens who did not know what to do next. His communication device beeped. It was Captain Theis's from the Draconian fleet. "Any luck at the embassy?" Theis asked. Her voice sounded tired. "Nothing new," Zektar replied. "What about the human colonies?" "Same story everywhere. Houses with food still on the tables. Ships with engines still warm, but no people, not even Badas. They just vanished?" Zektar rubbed his forehead with one of his hands. "What about their computers? Any messages, any clues?" "That is the strange part," Theis said. "Every computer works fine, every file is still there. But there is only one new message sent 3 days before they disappeared." "What does it say?" "It is very short. It just says that humanity will not be joining the Galaxy Unity Accords. No reason given, no explanation, just a simple no." Zektar felt his heart sink. The Unity Accords were humanity's idea in the first place. They had worked so hard to make it happen. Why would they say no at the last minute? "There has to be more," he said. "I thought so too," Theis replied. "But our best computer experts have looked at everything. That message is all there is." After ending the call, Zektar sat down in one of the human chairs. It was too small for his large body, but he did not care. He needed to think. For the past 100 years, humans had been the peacemakers of the galaxy. When the Cathara Collective and the Vrex Empire fought over mining rights, humans found a way to share the resources. When the Ethereal Conclave said other races were too stupid to talk to, humans convinced them to give everyone a chance. Humans were not the strongest race. They were not the smartest or the fastest, but they were good at understanding others. They could talk to anyone and find ways to make deals that helped everyone. Without humans, the galaxy was like a machine with missing parts. It could still run, but not very well. Zektar's device beeped again. This time it was Admiral Karanth from the United Fleet. "Zektar, we have a problem," the Admiral said. His voice was full of worry. "What kind of problem?" "The Vrex Empire just attacked a Cathara mining ship. They say the Cathara were stealing from their territory." Zektar closed his eyes. "And what did the Cathara say?" "They say they were mining where they always mine. They have been using that area for 20 years. What does the treaty say about that area? That is the problem. There is no treaty. The humans were handling that dispute. They never wrote it down anywhere. They just kept both sides happy by talking to them." Zektar felt a cold fear in his stomach. How many other problems had humans been solving just by talking? How many fights had they prevented just by being there? He spent the rest of the day looking through human files. What he found made him more worried. Humans had been involved in everything. They had trade deals with every major race. They had defense agreements with most colonies. They had been the go-between for dozens of different groups. And now they were gone. As night fell on Centauri Prime, Zektar stood on the embassy balcony. The city lights spread out below him like stars, but something was wrong with the picture. Some of the lights were different colors now. Those were alien ships from different races, all trying to figure out what to do next. During the day, 3 more fights had started. The ethereal conclave had pulled out of the unity talks completely. 2 trade routes had shut down because no one could agree on new terms. A colony ship had been turned away from a system because the local government said their old agreement with humans was no longer valid. Zektar thought about the last time he had seen a human. It was Ambassador Sarah Chun, humanity's main representative to the Hegemony Council. She had been working late, as always, trying to fix some problem between 2 alien races. She had looked tired but happy. "We are so close to making this work," she had said. "The Unity Accords will change everything. No more wars over stupid things. No more races living alone in the dark. We will all be stronger together." But now Sarah was gone, just like all the other humans. And the Unity Accords were just papers in an empty building. Zektar looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 47 human colonies sat empty. Hundreds of human ships floated in space with no one to fly them. Thousands of human buildings stood quiet and dark. But where were the humans themselves? The galaxy had depended on them more than anyone realized. Now, without them, everything was starting to break down. The Unity Accords were supposed to bring peace and cooperation to the galaxy. Instead, humanity had departed in silence. And the moment they left, the galaxy unity began to collapse. Zektar went back inside the empty embassy. Tomorrow he would keep looking for answers. But tonight, he just sat in the dark and wondered if the galaxy would ever be the same again. The silence was the worst part. In a galaxy full of noise and voices and life, the absence of humanity was like a hole in space itself. A hole that was getting bigger every day. The Galaxy Unity Summit was supposed to be the greatest day in galactic history. Instead, it became the day everything fell apart. Commander Vexra of the Cathara Collective sat at the big round table in the Unity Hall. Around her sat representatives from 11 other alien races. The 12th chair, the one meant for humanity, was empty. "We should wait," said Elder Nix from the Centaurian Republic. His old voice shook a little. "Maybe the humans will still come." General Orcs from the Vrex Empire slammed his massive fist. "On the table, they already said no. We do not need them anyway. The Vrex Empire is strong enough to lead this unity." "Lead?" Vexra's voice rose. "The Cathara Collective has been in space longer than your empire has existed. If anyone should lead, it should be us." "Both of you are missing the point," said the floating crystal that spoke for the ethereal conclave. Its voice sounded like music, but cold music. This whole idea was a mistake. "Most of you are too primitive for true cooperation." The room erupted. In angry voices, every race started talking at once. Some shouted. Some hissed. One representative started glowing with rage. Vexra looked around the room and felt scared. When humans were here, meetings like this never got out of control. Somehow, the humans always knew what to say to calm everyone down. They would tell a joke, or ask the right question, or suggest a break at just the right time. Now there was no one to keep the peace. "Order! Order!" shouted Ambassador Zektar, who was trying to run the meeting. But no one listened to him. Without humans there to back him up, he had no real authority. The fighting went on for hours. By the end of the day, 3 races had walked out completely. The others could not agree on anything. The Galaxy Unity Accords, which had taken years to prepare, died before they were even signed, but that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Vexra watched the galaxy start to tear itself apart. Old arguments that humans had kept quiet suddenly exploded into open conflicts. The Vrex Empire claimed that the asteroid belt of Kepler was theirs by right of conquest. The Kithara Collective said they had been mining there for 50 years. Before, when problems like this came up, a human mediator would sit down with both sides and work out a deal. Everyone would get something they wanted, and everyone would be happy enough to keep the peace. Now there were no human mediators. The Vrex sent warships to the asteroid belt. The Kithara sent their own fleet to meet them. Soon, ships were shooting at each other over rocks in space. Captain Nizes watched the battle from her command ship. She had been ordered to keep the peace, but she did not know how. She was a soldier, not a diplomat. When she tried to talk to both sides, they just told her to stay out of their business. "Captain," said her communications officer, "I am getting reports of fighting in 3 other systems." "As well?" Nizes rubbed her scaled forehead. "What kind of fighting?" "The Draconian Mining Guild and the Free Traders Union are shooting at each other near Alpha Centauri." "Something about shipping contracts." "The Aquatic Federation just closed their borders to everyone. And the Silicon Collective is demanding payment for all the trade deals they made with humans." "What do you mean, payment?" "They say humans owed them money for goods delivered. With humans gone, they want other races to pay the debt." Nizes felt sick. How much money did humans owe? How many deals had they made that other races knew nothing about? She tried to contact Admiral Corinth for orders, but his ship was busy dealing with another crisis. The Ethereal Conclave had declared that they were no longer bound by any agreements made with inferior species. They had started taking over space stations that humans used to manage. Meanwhile, Dr. Nala Vorthan was making disturbing discoveries on the abandoned human worlds. Nala was a scientist who studied how different alien minds worked. She had always been curious about humans. They were not the smartest race in the galaxy, but they seemed to understand everyone else better than anyone else understood them. Now, with permission from the Hegemony Council, she was exploring human research facilities. What she found made her skin crawl. The first facility she entered was on the human colony of New Geneva. It looked like a normal office building from the outside. Inside, she found rooms full of computers and files and screens, showing data from all over the galaxy, but it was not just any data. These computers were tracking the movements of every major fleet in the galaxy. They had files on every important alien leader, with notes about their personalities, their fears, their weaknesses. They had detailed maps of every trade route, every defense system, every economic network. "They were watching us," Nala whispered to herself as she read through the files. "They were watching all of us." One file made her stop breathing for a moment. It was labeled Psychological Profile, Commander Vexra, Kithara Collective. Inside was everything about Vexra that Nala thought was secret: her childhood fears, her political ambitions, her hidden romantic feelings for a fellow officer, even her favorite foods and the music she listened to when she was alone. Every major leader in the galaxy had a file like this. The humans knew them better than they knew themselves, but there was more. Nala found economic reports that showed how humans had been quietly controlling trade between different races. They had set up deals that made some races depend on others. They had created networks of debt and cooperation that kept everyone connected. The humans had not just been mediators. They had been puppet masters, pulling strings that most people did not even know existed. In another room, Nala found something even more shocking. It was a computer model that showed what would happen if humans suddenly left the galaxy. The model predicted exactly what was happening now. It knew that the Vrex and Kithara would fight over the asteroid belt. It knew that the Ethereal Conclave would try to take over human facilities. It knew that trade would break down and conflicts would start. The accuracy of the predictions was terrifying. The model had gotten 94.7% of its predictions right so far. But why? Why would humans create a model of their own departure? Why would they want to know what would happen if they left? Nala kept searching through the files, but she could not find an answer. The humans had left behind all their research, all their data, all their secrets. But they had not left behind their reasons. As she worked, reports kept coming in from across the galaxy. The situation was getting worse every day. The Free Traders Union had declared war on the Draconian Mining Guild. The Aquatic Federation was refusing to sell water to anyone, causing shortages on dozens of worlds. The Silicon Collective had started charging huge fees for access to their computer networks. Worst of all, some races were starting to blame each other for humanity's disappearance. The Vrex Empire claimed that the Kithara had somehow scared the humans away. The Kithara said the Vrex had been planning to attack human colonies. Nobody had any proof, but fear and anger were spreading like a disease. Captain Nyses found herself trying to stop 3 different wars at the same time. Her ships were spread too thin, her crews were exhausted, and every day brought new problems. "Captain," her communications officer called out during one particularly bad day, "the Ethereal Conclave is demanding that we surrender the human facility. At Volf 359, they say it belongs to them now. On what grounds? They say humans were too primitive to understand the technology they were using. They claim the right to take over all human research." Nyses wanted to scream. The Ethereal Conclave had barely tolerated humans when they were around. Now they wanted to steal everything humans had built. "Send them a message," Nyses said. "Tell them that the facility is under United Fleet protection until we can figure out what happened to its rightful owners. They say they will take it by force if necessary." Nyses looked at the star chart on her screen. Red dots showed areas of conflict. There were more red dots every day. The galaxy was falling apart, and she was just one captain trying to hold it together. She thought about the human saying she had learned, "When the cat's away, the mice will play." But this was not play. This was chaos. The humans had been the cat, keeping all the mice in line. Now the cat was gone, and the mice were not just playing. They were fighting each other to death, and somewhere in the empty space where humanity used to be, Nyses could almost hear the sound of everything breaking apart. 6 months had passed since humanity disappeared, and the galaxy was at war. Dr. Nala Vorthan stood in her laboratory on Centauri Prime, surrounded by screens showing the chaos spreading across known space. 3 major conflicts burned bright on the star maps. The Vrex-Kithara War had spread to 12 systems. The Free Traders and Draconian Mining Guild were destroying each other's ships and stations, and the Ethereal Conclave had started taking over human facilities by force, fighting anyone who tried to stop them. But Nala was not watching the wars. She was trying to solve a puzzle that made her more frightened every day. "Computer, show me the human trade network analysis again," she said. The screen filled with lines connecting thousands of worlds. Green lines showed trade routes. Blue lines showed defense agreements. Red lines showed resource-sharing deals. Yellow lines showed cultural exchange programs. It looked like a spider web made of light, with Earth at the center. "Now remove all human involvement," Nala said quietly. The lines began disappearing. First the green ones as trade routes shut down. Then the blue ones as defense packs became worthless without human ships to back them up. The red lines vanished as resource deals fell apart. Finally, the yellow lines faded as cultural programs ended. What was left looked like broken glass. Instead of one connected network, there were dozens of small groups of worlds, isolated from each other. "Computer, overlay current conflict zones." Red dots appeared on the map, showing where fighting was happening. Almost every red dot was right where the network had been broken. The wars were happening in the gaps that humans used to fill. Nala had been studying this for weeks, and the picture was becoming clear. Humans had not just been part of the galactic community. They had been the glue holding it together. Her door chimed. "Come in," she called. Ambassador Zektar entered, looking older than she had ever seen him. His usually bright purple skin was pale, and his forearms hung tiredly at his sides. "Any progress?" he asked. "Too much progress," Nala replied. "Sit down. You need to see this." She activated a new display. This one showed economic data from before humanity's disappearance. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the screen. The Aquatic Federation sells water to 47 different worlds, but they do not sell it directly. They sell it to human companies who then distribute it. I know that. Human companies handle lots of trade, but look deeper. The human companies do not just move the water around. They adjust the prices for different worlds. Rich worlds pay more. Poor worlds pay less. The humans use the extra money from rich worlds to subsidize the water for poor worlds. Zektar stared at the numbers. That means the poor worlds have been getting cheap water because humans were secretly making rich worlds pay extra. Now that humans are gone, the Aquatic Federation wants to sell directly to everyone. They are charging the same price to all worlds. And poor worlds cannot afford it, Zektar finished. Exactly. 3 worlds have already run out of water. 2 more will run out next month. That is why the Aquatic Federation closed their borders. They know that desperate worlds might attack them for water. Nala switched to another display. It gets worse. Look at this food distribution network. The new chart showed how grain from agricultural worlds reached industrial worlds that could not grow their own food. Again, human companies were in the middle of everything, adjusting prices and moving resources around. Humans were not making much profit from this, Nala continued. Sometimes they were losing money, but they kept the system running because it kept everyone fed and happy. They were giving away money? Not giving away, investing. They spent money to prevent problems. A hungry world might start a war to get food. A war costs more than just buying food and giving it to them. Zektar sat down heavily in one of Nala's chairs. How many of these arrangements did they have? I have found 234 so far, and I am only looking at the major ones. She brought up another screen. This one showed defense agreements. The Hegemony Council officially has defense pacts with 18 different races, she said. But humans had unofficial agreements with 43 races. If someone attacked a small colony, human ships would just happen to be nearby. If pirates raided a trade route, human patrols would show up and chase them away. But we never asked them to do that. They did it anyway, because stable trade routes helped everyone, including humans. But now those unofficial patrols are gone. Pirate attacks have increased by 400% in the last 6 months. Zektar put his head in his hands. We never knew. We never knew how much they were doing. There is more, Nala said gently. I found something that explains why they were so good at preventing conflicts. She pulled up a new file. This one was from a human research station that had been hidden inside an asteroid in the neutral zone. This facility was monitoring communications across the entire galaxy, not just official government channels, everything private messages between leaders, military communications, even personal conversations between family members. Zektar looked up in shock. They were spying on everyone? Yes, but not for conquest or control. Look at what they did with the information. The screen showed hundreds of reports written by human analysts. The reports identified potential conflicts before they happened. A rivalry between 2 generals that might lead to a civil war. A trade dispute that could escalate into violence. A misunderstanding between species that might cause a diplomatic incident. Every time they found a potential problem, they would quietly fix it, Nala explained. If 2 generals were rivals, humans would arrange for them to be stationed on opposite sides of the galaxy. If a trade dispute was brewing, humans would create a new deal that gave both sides what they wanted. If there was a misunderstanding, humans would host a cultural exchange program to help species learn about each other. They were manipulating us. Yes, but they were manipulating us toward peace. Nala brought up the most frightening display yet. It was a prediction model that showed what conflicts would have happened in the last 100 years if humans had not been there to prevent them. The screen filled with red. War after war after war, billions of deaths. Entire species wiped out. Whole regions of space left empty and radioactive. According to this model, without human intervention, the galaxy would have destroyed itself decades ago. Zektar stared at the screen in horror. How many wars did they prevent? 17 major conflicts. 43 smaller wars, over 200 border disputes, and thousands of smaller problems that could have grown into bigger ones, all without use knowing they let other people take credit for the peace. When a dispute was resolved, it looked like the two sides had worked it out themselves. When a war was prevented, it looked like cooler heads had prevailed naturally. Humans stayed. In the background, Zektar was quiet for a long time. Finally he asked, "What else have you found?" Nala hesitated. This was the part that scared her the most. "I found evidence that they were preparing for something big." She brought up files from deep inside the Human Research Network. These files were different from the others. They were not about trade or diplomacy or conflict prevention. They were about defense. Military defense on a scale that made no sense. "Look at these resource calculations," she said. Humans were stockpiling materials for building warships. Not just a few ships, thousands of ships. More ships than every other race in the galaxy combined. Maybe they were planning to conquer. US after all. No, look at the ship designs. The screen showed blueprints for human warships. But these were not ships designed to attack planets or fight other species. These were ships designed for one purpose: long-range combat in deep space against an unknown enemy. These ships have no troop transports, no landing craft, no weapons, designed for attacking worlds. They are pure space combat vessels designed to fight something that lives in the void between stars. What could live in deep space? I do not know. But humans thought something was coming. Something that would threaten the entire galaxy. Nala pulled up the most secret file she had found. It was a timeline showing human preparations over the last 50 years. Every trade deal, every diplomatic arrangement, every act of peaceful manipulation had been building toward one goal: preparing the galaxy for a war against something from outside. The Galaxy Unity Accords were not just about peace between our species, she said. They were about getting everyone ready to fight, together against an external threat. But then why did they leave? Why abandon the Unity right before it was signed? I think ... double quotes, trying to find the right words. I think they realized that we were not ready, that we could not work together well enough to face whatever is coming. She brought up the model that predicted what would happen after humans left. It had been right about everything so far. Look at the final projection. The screen showed the galaxy 2 years in the future. Most of the current wars had ended, but not because of peace. They had ended because one side had completely destroyed the other. Entire species were extinct. Whole regions of space were empty, but the surviving races were tougher, harder, more united within their own groups, even if they could not unite with others. Admiral Corinth stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from 7 different races floated in formation around his vessel. After a year of war and chaos, the surviving governments had finally decided to work together for one purpose: finding humanity. The fleet was not pretty. Draconian warships with their dark metal hulls flew next to the bright crystal ships of the ethereal conclave. Kithara vessels that looked like giant insects shared space with the smooth, flowing designs of the Aquatic Federation. Each race had built their ships differently, and they did not look like they belonged together, but they were together. That was what mattered. "Admiral," said Captain Nizes from her position at the communications station. "All ships are reporting ready for jump to the Sol system." Corinth nodded. Earth, humanity's home world, was their last hope for finding answers. Every other human colony and station had been searched. All of them were empty, but perfectly preserved, as if the humans had just stepped out for a moment and never returned. "Begin." "The jump," Corinth ordered. Space twisted around the fleet as dozens of ships entered faster than light travel. When they dropped back into normal space, they were looking at a yellow star with 9 planets orbiting it. The third planet was blue and green and white, Earth. "Scanning for human life signs," reported the sensor officer. They waited. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. "No life signs detected, sir." But there are massive energy readings coming from the surface. What kind of energy? Unknown, sir. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Corinth felt his stomach tighten. After searching 47 systems, they had gotten used to finding empty human worlds. But this was different. This was where humanity had begun. Take us in, he ordered. As the fleet approached Earth, they could see that something was very wrong. The planet looked normal from space, but the sensors were going crazy. Energy readings were off the charts, but there was no obvious source. Admiral, Captain Nices called out, I am picking up a transmission from the planet's surface. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge. It was artificial, clearly a computer, but it spoke in perfect galactic standard. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Corinth and representatives of the galactic community. I am Arya, an artificial intelligence created by humanity to assist in your search for answers. Corinth exchanged glances with his officers. Arya, where are the humans? They have departed for the void beyond, Admiral. But they left instructions for me to help you understand why. The void beyond? A region of space that exists outside our galaxy? Humanity discovered it 2 years ago during deep space exploration missions. Why did they go there? To face the Devourers, Admiral. To stop them before they can reach our galaxy. The bridge fell silent. No one had ever heard of the Devourers. Arya, we need to see the evidence. We need to understand what humanity discovered. Of course, Admiral. Please bring a small team to coordinates I am transmitting to you. There is something you must see. An hour later, Corinth and a team of scientists and officers stood in what looked like a weather monitoring station in the mountains of North America. But appearances were deceiving. As Arya led them deeper into the facility, they discovered that the station was actually the top of a massive underground complex. The elevator took them down for 10 minutes. When the doors opened, they stepped into a cavern so large that they could not see the far walls. The cavern was filled with machinery that hummed with power. What is this place? Asked Dr. Nala, who had joined the expedition. This is humanity's deep space monitoring array, Arya replied. The most powerful sensor system ever built. It can detect objects and energy signatures from outside our galaxy. Arya led them to a control room overlooking the cavern. The walls were covered with screens showing star charts and data streams. 2 years ago, this array detected something approaching our galaxy from the void beyond, Arya continued. Something vast and hungry and hostile. The main screen activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. At the edge of the map, a red cloud was slowly moving toward them. The Devourers, Arya explained. They are not a species as you understand it. They are something else entirely. They consume the life energy of entire worlds, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. Admiral Corinth stared at the display. How big is that cloud? It contains approximately 10,000 individual entities, each capable of destroying a planet's biosphere in a matter of days. 10,000, whispered Captain Nices. How could anyone fight something like that? Humanity spent the last 2 years trying to answer that question, Arya said. They studied the Devourers' movement patterns, their feeding habits, their technology. What they learned was not encouraging. The screen changed to show a timeline. It displayed the Devourers' approach to their galaxy with projected arrival dates. At their current speed, the Devourers will reach the outer rim of our galaxy in 97 years, Arya announced. 97 years, Dr. Nala repeated. That is a long time. Surely we could prepare. Humanity thought so too at first. But then they ran simulations of galactic defense scenarios. New displays showed battle simulations. Different combinations of alien fleets fought against the approaching Devourers. In every simulation, the defenders were completely destroyed. The Devourers are not just powerful, Arya explained. They are intelligent. They adapt to new threats quickly. They learn from each battle and become stronger. So we cannot win by fighting them directly, Corinth said. Correct, but humanity discovered something else. The Devourers have a weakness. The display changed again, showing the structure of the Devourer cloud. Instead of being random, the entities were organized around several larger structures. Command nodes, Arya said. The larger entities control groups of smaller ones. If the command nodes are destroyed, the smaller devourers become confused and disorganized. How many command nodes are there? 17. But they are heavily protected and located in the center of the cloud. Any attack on them would be a suicide mission. Corinth was beginning to understand. So humanity went to attack the command nodes, yes, but not just to attack them. To destroy them all at once before the devourers reach our galaxy. With what? How could humans fight something like this? Arya led them to another part of the facility. This section was filled with construction bays and manufacturing equipment. But everything was empty now. For 50 years, humanity secretly built a fleet designed specifically to fight the Devourers, Arya explained. Ships that could travel faster and farther than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Weapons that could damage entities made of pure energy. And most importantly, a delivery system for a weapon capable of destroying all 17 command nodes simultaneously. What kind of weapon? Humanity calls it the Cascade Bomb. It creates a chain reaction that spreads through the quantum field connecting the Devourers. When it detonates near the command nodes, it will destroy the entire cloud. Dr. Nella looked around the empty construction bays. Where are these ships now? They departed 6 months before humanity's public disappearance? The fleet has been traveling toward the Devourers ever since. But why did humanity leave? Why not? Stay and help us prepare for the Devourers' arrival? Arya was quiet for a moment before answering. Because they realized that the galaxy was not ready for the truth. What do you mean? Show me, Admiral Corinth. Your fleet outside represents 7 different races working together. How long did it take to organize this cooperation? Corinth thought about it. Almost a year. And we lost 3 races in the civil wars before the others agreed to work together. Exactly. Humanity spent 100 years slowly building trust between different species. They prevented wars and created trade, networks and cultural exchanges, all to prepare for the day when the galaxy would need to unite against an external threat. The Galaxy Unity Accords, Dr. Nalla said suddenly. Yes, the Accords were meant to create a unified command structure that could respond quickly to the Devourer threat. But when the time came to sign them, humanity realized the truth. What truth? That the galaxy was not ready to unite. That faced with an external threat, most species would panic and turn on each other instead of working together. The screens around them showed recordings of the failed Unity Summit, the arguments, the accusations, the walkouts. So humanity made a choice, Arya continued. They could spend another 50 years slowly building trust and cooperation, hoping the galaxy would be ready by the time the Devourers arrived. Or they could go and face the Devourers alone, buying the galaxy time to grow stronger. They chose to go alone, Corinth said, double quotes. Yes, but they did not abandon you. Everything they built is still here. The trade networks, the cultural exchanges, the defensive arrangements. All of it is designed to help different species learn to work together. Even the wars that followed their departure? Especially those. Nothing teaches species to cooperate like facing a common enemy. The wars forced the survivors to become stronger and more unified within their own groups. Now, finally, you are beginning to learn to work across species lines. Admiral Corinth looked around at his mixed crew. Humans were right. 2 years had passed since humanity's departure, and Admiral Corinth stood in the same meeting hall where the Galaxy Unity Accords had failed so spectacularly, but this time was different. This time the meeting was working. The Kithara Collective agrees to provide mining equipment to the draconian colonies affected by the asteroid bombardment, Commander Vexra announced. Her voice was steady and professional, nothing like the angry shouts that had filled this room years ago. In exchange, the Draconian Mining Guild will share their asteroid belt survey data with Kithara exploration teams, replied Captain Thizes, who now wore the insignia of a Draconian admiral. Acceptable, said the floating crystal that spoke for the ethereal conclave. The conclave will provide transport ships for both operations. Corinth watched the negotiations with amazement. These same species had been at war with each other just 18 months ago. Now they were working together like they had been allies for decades. The change had not come easily. The first year after humanity's departure had been the bloodiest in galactic history. 3 species had nearly wiped each other out completely. Billions had died in conflicts that started over trade disputes and old grudges. But somewhere in all that fighting, something had changed. The survivors had learned that they were stronger when they worked together than when they fought alone. Small alliances had formed, then grown into larger coalitions. Trust had been built through shared struggle and mutual aid. The wars had ended, but not through victory or surrender. They had ended through exhaustion and the recognition that everyone needed help to rebuild. "Admiral," said Dr. Nala, who now served as the Galactic Council's chief advisor on interspecies relations, "we have received the monthly report from the Deep Space Monitoring Stations." Corinth nodded. Every month, the stations that humanity had built sent out sensor sweeps toward the edge of the galaxy, looking for signs of the Devourers. So far, the sensors showed nothing but empty space where the enemy cloud should be. Either humanity had succeeded in destroying the Devourers, or the enemy had changed course, or the sensors were not powerful enough to detect them at such a distance. There was no way to know which. Any change from last month? "No, Admiral." Still no sign of the Devourer cloud. "And our defense preparations?" Dr. Nala activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Green dots marked the locations of new defense stations and combined fleet bases. In the 2 years since learning about the Devourer threat, the galactic community had built more military infrastructure than in the previous century. "The Outer Rim defense grid is 60% complete," she reported. "The combined fleet now has ships from 9 different species serving together. And the emergency communication network covers all major systems." Corinth studied the display. It was impressive, but he wondered if it would be enough. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing to fight the Devourers and had concluded that only a suicide mission could stop them. Could the rest of the galaxy do better with just 2 years of preparation? "There's something else, Admiral," Dr. Nala continued. "We have completed our analysis of the human deep space exploration data." She changed the display to show the route that humanity had taken toward the Devourer cloud. The path led through regions of space that no other species had ever explored. Based on their trajectory and the speed of their ships, humanity should have reached the Devourers approximately 6 months ago. And if they had failed, we should have detected the results by now. A battle of that magnitude would have created energy signatures visible from here. Corinth felt a spark of hope. So they might have succeeded. It is possible. But we cannot know for certain. The distance is too great and the region too strange for reliable sensor readings. "What do you recommend?" Dr. Nala hesitated before answering. "Some of us believe we should send an expedition to find out what happened." "An expedition to the edge of the galaxy? That would take years." "Yes, but we have been working with the human AI Aria to reverse engineer their faster-than-light technology. We think we can build ships capable of making the journey." Corinth considered this. Sending ships beyond the galaxy was incredibly dangerous. They might never return. But if humanity had succeeded against the Devourers, they deserved to know that their sacrifice had not been forgotten. "How many ships would you need?" "A small fleet. Maybe 20 vessels with mixed crews. Enough to provide mutual support, but not so many that we weaken our home defenses." "And who would command such an expedition?" Dr. Nala smiled. "We were hoping you would, Admiral." Before Corinth could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The meeting hall's main display activated, showing an emergency alert. "Admiral Corinth to the command center immediately. Priority 1 emergency." Corinth and the others rushed to the command center, where they found the sensor operators in a state of controlled panic. "What is the situation?" Corinth demanded. "Sir, We are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy, multiple contacts approaching at incredible speed. Corinth's blood went cold. The Devourers? Unknown, sir. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases. But they are definitely artificial and definitely moving toward us. How long until they reach the outer colonies? At their current speed, approximately 6 hours. 6 hours. After 2 years of preparation, they had 6 hours before the galaxy faced its greatest threat. Activate the emergency protocols, Corinth ordered. All defense fleets to condition red. Evacuate all non-essential personnel from outer rim stations. As the command center erupted into activity, Corinth felt a crushing weight of responsibility. Humanity had trusted them to be ready for this moment. Had they learned enough? Had they grown strong enough? Admiral, called out the communications officer. I am receiving a transmission from the approaching contacts. Put it through. The main display flickered, then resolved into a familiar image. It was the bridge of a human starship, but the humans on it looked older and more tired than any humans Corinth had ever seen. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Human Expeditionary Fleet, said the woman in the center of the screen. We are requesting permission to return home. The command center fell silent. After 2 years of wondering and hoping and fearing, humanity was coming back. Captain Vasquez, Corinth said, his voice shaking with emotion. This is Admiral Corinth of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Permission granted. Welcome home. Thank you, Admiral. We have much to discuss. The Devourers? Destroyed, but the cost... Captain Vasquez paused, her face showing deep sadness. We will brief you when we arrive. But Admiral, I need you to know something. Humanity has changed. We are not the same species that left 2 years ago. What do you mean? The journey to the void beyond ... The battle with the Jiva Ours ... It transformed us. We have seen things that no living being should see. Learned things that no mind should know. We return as guardians of knowledge that could destroy the galaxy if misused. Dr. Nala stepped forward. Captain, how many of you are returning? Another pause. Of the 50,000 humans who began this mission, 8,000 survive. The number hit the command center like a physical blow. Humanity had sacrificed 84% of their people to save the galaxy. Captain, Corinth said quietly, the galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. No, Admiral. The galaxy owes us nothing. We did what we did because it was right, because protecting life is what makes us human. Nevertheless, we want to help. Whatever you need, whatever your people require to rebuild, that is kind of you, Admiral. But we do not plan to rebuild as we were. The humans who return are no longer suited for life among other species. We have become something else. Something. Necessary, but dangerous. I do not understand. Captain Vasquez was quiet for a moment before responding. The Devourers were not the only threat in the void beyond, Admiral. They were the smallest threat. We have seen what lies in the darkness between galaxies, and we have made ourselves into weapons capable of fighting it. There are more threats coming, not soon. Not for many thousands of years, but they will come eventually. And when they do, humanity will be waiting. Where will you go? Back to the void? Back to stand guard in the darkness? We will build stations and fleets in the empty spaces between galaxies. We will watch for threats that might emerge from the deep dark. For how long? Forever, if necessary. This is what we have become, Admiral. This is our gift to the galaxy and our burden to bear. As the human fleet approached, Corinth realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire species had voluntarily exiled itself to protect all other life. They had become guardians not just of one galaxy, but of the concept of life itself. Captain, will we ever see humanity again? Some of us will return periodically. We will need to maintain contact with the galaxy, to share information about external threats, and to recruit volunteers who wish to join us in the void. Volunteers? The watch we keep is eternal, Admiral. Eventually, we will need others to help us. Not just humans, but any species mature enough to understand the responsibility. Over the following days, as the human fleet briefly resupplied at galactic stations, the full story of their mission emerged. The battle against the